Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation on shale oil. In this animation, we will be going over the history, uses, and refining of shale oil, and providing an in-depth explanation as to why we believe it is superior to other forms of oil.
So, what is shale oil? Well, shale oil, or tight oil, is a bituminous, kerogen-rich sedimentary rock which, when heated to extreme temperatures, releases hydrocarbons. Now that you guys have a little idea of what shale oil is, let's rewind the clock and take a look at its history. Shale oil was first discovered in the 10th century by the Arabian physician Masawai al-Mardini, or in English, Muse the Younger. Shale oil first saw widespread use about 400 years after its discovery by both Switzerland and Austria as fuel for streetlights. The first ever industrial extraction of shale oil occurred in France around the city of Autun in 1837, but only 14 years later, Scottish chemist James Young developed the first ever mass shale oil refining industry around Livingston, Scotland. Oh, and an interesting fact, Nazi Germany experimented with shale oil as a source of synthetic fuel in World War II.
Now that the history is out of the way, what are the uses of shale oil? Refined shale oil can be used for many things, the most important of which include diesel fuel, petroleum, paraffin wax in candles, and a drying agent for cement. Shale oil undergoes an intense refining process, which obviously produces waste. This waste isn't entirely useless, because it is used in many more products such as jet and boat fuel, carbon fiber, rubber filler, and propylene, which is a chemical compound similar to propane. Not only does shale oil have industrial applications, it also has medical properties, being naturally antibacterial and anti-inflammatory.
Now let's compare this to crude oil. Crude oil was first discovered by the Chinese in 600 BC and was transported in pipes made out of bamboo. Fast forward to the medieval era, boiling oil was sometimes poured on attacking soldiers to prevent them from scaling the walls. Fast forward, again, to 1859, when, ironically, Colonel Drake discovered crude oil in Pennsylvania. This discovery of a cheaper, more easily accessible oil product immediately skyrocketed the demand for crude oil, which was being advertised as a more flexible and efficient fuel source compared to coal. The invention of cars, the light bulb, oil-powered ships, trucks, and tanks also greatly increased the demand for crude oil, with gasoline exceeding kerosene sales in 1919. Crude oil also produces less waste from refining than shale oil, and has a larger variety of uses. Crude oil can be refined into multiple different types of fuel, such as gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. Other uses of crude oil include asphalt and in certain petrochemicals. All of these products are extremely important to our modern world, but they wouldn't exist if we couldn't get our dinosaur juices out of the ground. Harvesting crude oil is almost exactly like drinking a juice box. The first step in harvesting crude oil is conducting a seismic survey. A machine on the surface of the Earth sends vibrations underground, and a team of scientists analyze the echoes made by the vibrations. After they determine where the oil is, the drilling process starts. A drilling rig is assembled directly over top of the oil source, which then bores through the Earth's surface to pump out the oil. This method is extremely dangerous because the built-up pressure in the deposit can burst through the surface. Shale oil wells use fracking or hydraulic fracturing to harvest their oil. The juice box analogy still somewhat applies to shale oil, but imagine that your straw always has explosives on it, and instead of first sucking up juice, it shoots out water into the juice. But in all seriousness, shale oil wells use drills and explosives to get past the thick layer of rock that commonly surrounds shale oil. After this, the well takes a 90-degree turn in the middle of the deposit, which allows for access to a larger reservoir of oil and also causes less surface disturbances.
During the extraction process, millions of gallons of water and propellants, which are sand-like substances, are pumped into the deposit, which forces oil to shoot up to the surface.
Usually, crude oil wells are cheaper to set up compared to shale oil wells because they don't employ the 90-degree drilling technique. Therefore, less money needs to be spent to start pumping oil.
Now, let's get to the fun part. Money!
Here comes the money!
Crude oil is currently very profitable and is likely to remain a good way to make money for the next 20 years. This is until the world's oil reservoirs soon inevitably run out. Many investors have massive amounts of money invested into these crude oil stocks. On average, a barrel of crude oil is worth $75, which is 150% more expensive compared to shale oil. On the other hand, the price for existing shale oil wells is $30 per barrel and $90 for new wells. Also, shale oil makes up about 60% of the US's oil production and has helped them become a net exporter of oil since 2019. With there being more shale oil on the planet, the USA also produces about 20.1% of oil to the entire world, making about 12% of the global oil production shale oil, exclusively from the USA. We could force a monopoly on it, especially since crude oil is predicted to run out by 2052.
Actually, both shale oil and crude oil are terrible and produce insane amounts of pollution. Whether it be water pollution or air pollution with built up oil gases leaking into the atmosphere, such as methane and volatile organic compounds, such as benzene, ethylbenzene, and N-hexane. Not only does extracting oil produce pollution, but it also has a major impact on the environment surrounding drill sites. The drilling process weakens habitats as well as threatening biodiversity. And oh yeah, it's also illegal!
What are you doing here?
Ow. Ow. Ow, ow, ow.
Anyways, unlike shale oil, crude oil releases large amounts of harmful gases into the atmosphere. But on the bright side, the risk of sinkholes is considerably smaller compared to shale oil because the drilling process doesn't involve breaking apart rocks.
In conclusion, we believe that shale oil, an unconventional source of oil, has an extremely high potential to dominate the oil industry in the near future. This is not only due to the fact that crude oil has been an overexploited energy source for the past few centuries, as well as the fact it has produced slightly less pollution, but shale oil also has a much higher market in the coming future. We believe we should invest into shale oil and research more economical and profitable ways to extract shale oil.